you find that your definition for success has evolved from what it used to be as a new leader to what it is now, where you've had years into leadership?
Early on in my leadership career, I think that, the definition to me of a leader was always like I had to have all the answers, and I needed to, as a leader, have the answers, know what to do, know what the next steps are, and accountable for making all of that happen. And I think over time, what I've realized from a lot of great mentors and through just experience is that I don't have to have all the answers as a leader. And my job is to help develop and coach individuals on my team to help them come up with the answers. I don't need to be an expert in every single thing that my team does in order to lead a team successfully. If I could add one more, it's just to be yourself. There were so many times when I feel like I was trying to be someone different because I thought that that's what people wanted from me. And that's what I felt like I needed to be. And at the end of the day, all of the best things happened when I was just being myself and being my authentic self.
Welcome to Career Conversations with Ola, the official podcast of Career Zone by Ola. I am your host, Ola Adediji, a human resource professional, career enthusiast, and a coach. Your go-to guide through the highs, lows, and everything in between of building a meaningful career. In each episode, I sit down with incredible professionals, trailblazers, go-getters, and everyday leaders to share real stories, practical advice, and lessons you can actually use. Whether you're just starting out, pivoting, or chasing your next big goal, the space is here to inspire and empower you. Join me and let's navigate the world of work together.
Welcome back to yet another exciting and I promise insightful episode of Career Conversations with Ola. This is the space where we get to dive into the real relatable career stories of incredible professionals. And as always, I have with me another incredible professional today. If you're watching on video, you can tell by my big smile that I'm really excited about today's episode. Today, I have with me a guest that I have been opportune to work on the same team with, and she's a great human. She's great. I could go on and talk about her today. I'm privileged to be sitting with someone who has dedicated her career to transforming how organizations learn, grow, and perform at their best. Delaney Ellis is my guest today. Delaney, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and, the willingness to want to do this. So excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here, Ola. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. So a bit about Delaney. Delaney, like I said, has been a force when it comes to helping people transform their careers and how organizations learn, grow, and perform. She is a force in the learning and performance world. She's a seasoned leader with over a decade of experience leading and shaping the future of the workplace. She's not just building programs when it comes to learning, but she's building people, crafting environments where individuals don't just work, but they truly thrive. She's got a career spanning key leadership roles in the credit union system and led large-scale initiatives that define effective learning in today's world of work. I'm so excited about today's episode because I know that she comes with a lot of depth. Beyond the titles and the accomplishments, she is passionate about what she does. She's very results-driven. She's a leader who believes that great learning isn't just about the content or the impact that it leaves. And today, she's going to be sharing with us not just her journey, but a lot of insights around leadership. I believe today would be such an insightful session. So I would say just stick with me and stick with Delaney because we're going to have a wow episode at the end of today. Thank you again, Delaney. Before we get in, I just wanted to do a few icebreakers, if you don't mind. I love them these days. I feel like they help ease into the conversation nicely. So my first one for you today, let's say you could switch careers for a day. What is that different job that you did like to try just for the fun of it?
Honestly, this is funny because I've ended up in learning and development in my career, but I think that I would be an elementary school teacher.
What?
Yeah, I never knew that I wanted to hang out with little kids every day until I had kids. And by that time, I had a well-established career in HR and I loved it. And I'm not prepared to go backwards and start over. But yeah, I think I would be an elementary school teacher and just go hang out with kids all day long.
That would be fun. Yeah. And I can tell it's very rewarding as well. So
I think so, yeah.
I really appreciate that for sure. Well, okay, so one more to learning. When you're not working at all, on things learning or leadership, like when you're not doing the big fancy learning and performance stuff, what do you like to do in your downtime to recharge and unwind?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of downtime, I feel like. I have two very busy teenagers, and so I do a lot of driving them around. But for my own personal mental health and my own personal well-being, I really love going to the gym. So I try to get to the gym a couple times a week. I do some weight classes. I do some spin classes. I also try to walk at lunch almost every day, even if it's for 10 minutes. I try to get outside. A little bit harder in terms of the weather that we have here sometimes in Winnipeg. But yeah, so I think that really helps me just in my downtime to recharge and just kind of get ready for the next day.
So it's everything fitness, pretty much. Like if you had your way, you would, embed fitness into everything that you do.
Absolutely. I would 100%. Yeah. What I don't have is a standing desk, and I need a standing desk so that I can have like a walking pad under it, and then I'd be good to go.
Yeah. Those are really fun. Those are good as well. I've tried some of that. It's really good. Well, thank you so much. Let's dive straight into, the more serious stuff, like I like to call them. Delaney, I am so curious about this myself. Like on my own, I'm curious about your journey. Did you always think it was going to be human resource and then you ended up in learning and performance? Like, how did you get here? Was it something you preconceived from way back in college, or did you fall into it like some people have described? Tell us your story. I like to say, I want to know the stories behind the scene. How did you get there?
For sure. Honestly, I think it was a little bit of falling into it with a little bit of kind of passion for people behind it. So I started at university. In high school, I loved math. I loved everything to do with math. I loved numbers, and I really liked business. Like I thought business was a good thing to go into, and I thought I would want to be an accountant. That was what I had decided that I wanted to do, and I went into commerce, and I took my very first accounting class, and there's just some brains that it really clicks with, and mine was not that one, right? And I understand a debit and a credit, but I would look at a balance sheet and I would be so confused, and I'm like, I just don't think that this is something that I'm going to be able to do for the rest of my life. Like it was too difficult for me, and so I thought, okay, so I'm not going to be an accountant. What am I going to do? I'm in commerce, I'm in the business. What am I going to do? And I was looking at all of the other professions, and I thought, human resources sounded interesting. I love people. I love talking to people, which is a lot of what you do in HR, right? And so I moved into HR. And what was a pleasant surprise to me is that there is still a lot of that numbers focus. When you get into working in compensation and job evaluation and all of those kinds of things, you get to use all of those other skills that you have. So what I was pleasantly surprised by is that HR kind of took all of the things that I really loved and put it into one profession. And so once I started through my studies and then into, working into the working world and working into HR, I was able to really just uncover how much I loved it and how much I loved working with people and helping people and all those kinds of things. So I kind of fell into it, but I think it was probably meant to be at the end of the day.
It was pretty much you had skill sets that sort of helped you just point in that direction, and you found yourself in it and you continue to build from that. So I'm curious to know, did you at any point try something else, or has it always been something in the sphere of the human resource world?
Yeah, honestly, it's always been, since I graduated from university, it's always been in the HR world. I worked at a small publishing company kind of straight out of university, and then got my first job in the credit union system 20 years ago. And it's kind of I've been in the credit union system and in human resources that entire time. So yeah, lots of different kind of areas within HR, but I've never really strayed from the HR function. Yeah.
That's really good. I like it when it's almost as though you find your calling, you find your purpose so early, and you just live your entire life, building on that. That's really, really good. And so I'm curious, were there defining moments, were there career markers for you where it felt like, yeah, I think I made the right call, and I think I'm doing the right thing, or this is what I meant to do?
Honestly, I think it was my first job in the credit union system. So about 20 years ago, I started as an HR analyst at Credit Union Central of Manitoba. And like I said, I had previously worked in a small publishing company. When I started there was a tenured HR person there who I was excited to learn from, and she left about 6 months after I got there. And so I was kind of on my own, and I was new to HR, and I didn't feel like I had all the skills I needed to have or all the learning I needed to do. And I stumbled across the role at Credit Union Central of Manitoba. And I think what was really interesting for me was I was coming into this team, a very large HR team at the time. There were other organizations associated with the CUCM that they did some work with. And so they were the HR function for a couple of those organizations. And so we had a large HR team, which I was so excited about, just being able to learn from people. And then also just the fact that the values piece was just so aligned with my own personal values in terms of the credit union system and the opportunity to help people and, all the good that credit unions do for our communities that we serve and all of those kinds of things. So I think that was really the defining moment, was like, yeah, this is where I want to be, not only in HR, because I had some great mentors that I learned some amazing things from, but also the credit union system. So it was kind of like a two for one deal.
And so and that's so important. Like I always say, that natural fit. You get into certain environments and you just feel like, yeah, I'm made for this. And it continuously just helps you to thrive and helps you to shine from there. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm curious, you've told us the really nice stuff, but I don't believe that there are careers without unique challenges. Have you had any of those challenging moments? And if you can share us on maybe one or two of those, but ultimately, what did you learn from those experiences?
I think there's challenging moments. I mean, there's challenging people that you work with. And so I think I've had some experiences there. And, we're talking about leadership today, and think about kind of the leader that I want to be and where I've learned that from. And a lot of that is from the people that I've had who haven't been great leaders. So I learn what I don't want to do, right? And so I've definitely had some challenging leaders that I've worked with. Like I said, they've really taught me what I want to be and what I don't want to be as a leader. So that's been great. I've also, with the moves that I've made in my career, for the most part, they've all been moves that I have initiated, right? So you want to move on, you want to take on a new challenge and a new role. When I moved over to the role I'm in now, it was through a merger opportunity with two credit unions. And there wasn't really something that I had a change that I had initiated. And so it was something that was, kind of forced upon me. But then, in those situations, you can look at it one or two ways, right? You can look at like, oh, woe me, I'm being forced to do this. Or you can take that as a new challenge, a new opportunity, and move forward. And that's really the path that I took. And it's been a phenomenal experience for me. And the team that I'm working with today is wonderful. I've learned so much over the last 3 years in terms of learning and leadership and all of those kinds of things. So there's always, and I think whenever there's a challenging situation, what I like to do is I just like to look at, well, I could do this or I could do this. And how do I want to move forward, and kind of look at it from both sides. And I typically try to choose the positive one.
There are always options, is what I say. But I like how you put that. Interesting thing, a few weeks back, I was thinking about it, just having some reflections on my own. And I said, some leaders actually come into your life to show you how not to be a leader. Literally. And, whilst you were sharing, you did touch on that. It's, sometimes we become better people because we've seen how not to be the other way. And I like how you're approaching it from, I didn't have some leaders who were great, but my intention, my goal is that I continue to impact my space to do better in that space. Thank you so much for sharing. So I wanted to touch a bit before we get into leadership. I know that I'm looking forward to having you share a bit on that, but before I get into leadership, career pivots, people talk about progression in different ways. I've always thought progression is never linear. Like, you always have to be open, but some other people think differently. Was there ever a time where you had to rethink, maybe not necessarily pivoting into another field, but where you had to rethink the strategy of how you were approaching your career? And what were some of the things you did?
I think, I don't even know how long ago it was, about 10 years ago now, I made the move from Credit Union Central of Manitoba to Integra Credit Union. And at the time I thought, well, this is going to be, all the work that I'm doing here at CUCM is the same work that I'm going to be doing at Integra. And so it's going to be a really easy transition for me, knowing that, of course, it's like new people and new policies and new procedures and all those kinds of things. Yeah. But, I just thought from a work perspective, this is going to be a piece of cake. Like, it's going to be easy. And then I got into it and realized that no, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. I think that at that time it was a brand new HR department. I was kind of the first leader of the HR department they'd ever had at the credit union. There was a couple of challenges that I had. Number one, I was now not part of a large HR team anymore. It was myself and one other individual. I was the leader, and so people were looking to me for the answers, and there wasn't anyone else around to bounce something off of, and it was those kinds of things. But also the organization had never had a formal HR strategy that they had worked around, or formal HR policies and procedures. And they had policies, but not, like those HR procedures. And, I came in and I started just putting all these things in place. And then there was kind of a bit of all that change, right? When you don't realize it, I'm thinking like, this is going to be great for the organization. And overall, at the end of the day, it absolutely was great for the organization. But yeah, I really had to rethink the whole change management aspect of what I was doing and how I was doing it, because it wasn't working for everyone. And I really needed to stop and think, and what is going to be best for everyone, and how am I going to do this? And, you kind of go into new roles just thinking like about all of the things you want to do and all the impact you want to make, and just proving that you can do it. And I really had to slow down. I just was like, I can't do all of this at once, not only because I can't, but everyone else can't take it in. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can imagine that when it looks like too many changes coming, you also, like just the way you mentioned, managing that change management approach is super important. So it's not just you churning out all of the initiatives and all of the policies and all of it, but it's how are the people at the other end receiving all that you're churning out?
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that a lot even today when we look at all the projects we're doing from an organizational perspective. Yeah, like even just every little thing that I would think it was little, but it's affecting someone in a different department. And so the piling all that on just doesn't work.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I think that is a really good lesson. Just leveraging that and pivoting into leadership, which is one of the areas I was looking for us to discuss. One of the things I have come to understand, or even from some of the conversations I've had, is transitioning from an individual contributor into a leader, like a people manager, is usually a tough call for a lot of folks. Did you find that was the same experience for you? What was the hardest part? And when you found how difficult that was, how did you approach leadership differently based off that?
Yeah, I think the biggest difficulty for me in moving from the individual contributor role into a leadership role is that I was doing it at an organization where I had worked already for 5 or 6 years. And so all of the people that I was now leading were my colleagues the day before. And that was the hardest part for me in trying to understand how was I now going to be their leader and hold them accountable to work, where before it was us as colleagues working together on those things. And so, I thought about it a little bit, and what I ended up doing was sitting down with each of those individuals and sharing with them what my expectations of them were, as an employee in the organization and as part of a team that we have. But then what I also asked them was, what is their expectation of me as a leader? And what I wanted to understand was, what were they looking for from me? And how could I give them that? And so I think that was I've done it in every other organization I've moved into, whether I knew the people or not. I've always done that. I've asked for their expectations of me as a leader so that I can understand where we're at and where we're coming from and what they need, and that I can help to give them that. And I think by doing that, it helped to build some trust. It helped to build that kind of leader-employee relationship a little bit more. And it was bumpy. There were times that were definitely bumpy, especially if there's performance issues and those kinds of things. But we worked through it. And, one of the things that I value a lot, I've always valued from my leaders, is open communication and being honest, open and honest communication. And so I've always just tried to do that and bring that to any leadership relationship that I'm in. And yeah, it's definitely a tough transition, but it can be done. And I think it worked out. Definitely some bumps along the road, but yeah, I was able to build that trust with them.
Thank you so much for sharing. If there's one thing that I picked on from that, and you had said setting the right expectations from the onset, but ultimately also seeking from the team what expectations they have of you as the new leader. So it's more of setting expectations, but from a two-way perspective, versus you just dishing out to say, yeah, I'm the leader, I'm the new sheriff in town. Here you go. This is all you need to start doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much. I think that's really valuable insight, and for anyone who would find themselves in that space. So I'm curious, success as a leader usually would mean different things to different people. You have led for a bit. did you find that your definition for success has evolved from what it used to be as a new leader to what it is now, where you've had years into leadership?
Absolutely. I think that, even before I became a leader or early on in my leadership career, I think that, the definition to me of a leader was always like, I had to have all the answers and I needed to, as a leader, that's what leaders do. They have the answers. They know what to do. They know what the next steps are, and they are accountable for making all of that happen. And I think over time, what I've realized from a lot of great mentors and through just experience is that I don't have to have all the answers as a leader. And, my job is to help develop and coach individuals on my team to help them come up with the answers. And so I don't need to have all the answers to everything. And I don't need to be an expert in every single thing that my team does in order to lead a team successfully. And the other part of that is I think that, I always saw it as when I was thinking about leadership early on in my career, it was always about I needed to do this. I needed to do this as a leader. And over time, over my years of experience, what I've really come to understand is that this is more of a team and we need to do this. And how do I as the leader help my team grow in their roles, grow personally in order to gain those skills that they need to move on to that next job or role or experience or project or something like that. So what I've learned to do is focus more on my team and building my team and working with them as opposed to thinking I need to do it all and I need to have all the answers.
Thank you so much. I thought that was really powerful. You don't have to be everything to all men. It's literally just saying we're doing this together. So just changing that perspective from I to we is also very important. And we're doing this together. And I like how you chipped in to say, I can manage someone who has very different skill set from me. I don't have to know everything that my team knows to lead that team pretty much. But, if you have the right foundation as a leader, you can bring everyone together and the team can thrive.
Yeah, and when that really hit home for me was actually not even that long ago, just when I moved into the role of the learning and performance role where I am today. I've always done learning and learning off the side of my desk. I've worked in smaller organizations where there's no dedicated learning resource. And so as an HR professional, myself, the people I've worked with, we've all done it off the side of our desk. And so moving into ACU, there was a larger organization, a dedicated learning team, which was amazing. And I took on the leadership of that team. I don't have an educational background in learning and development. I have an educational background in human resources. I've been a leader in the credit union system for a number of years, but I don't have that educational background. My team is built of people who have that. And so I was really struggling initially with the fact I don't know all the ins and outs of everything that they're doing every day or all the technical terms they're saying. And so yes, I did some learning and I did some research on the side to kind of get up to speed with some of those things. But what I really realized was I don't need to have that expertise because they have the expertise. And together as a team, we can work through that. And I can still lead the team. I can still lead the learning and performance department through as part of the larger organization without having that technical expertise in what I did. And we've done some really great things over the last 3 years and we've been really successful. And so that really, I knew that, but I was able to see it happen in real time. And so just, putting more trust in that and just understanding that a little bit better.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a really valuable insight for sure. So still on leadership, just before we dive off that quickly, a lot of times people say leadership isn't just about what we do. It's, the how we do it. And so I'm curious to know, as individuals, we have personal values. Do you get to reflect that in how you lead your teams? And how do you support your teams to be able to find their why? Like beyond doing the day-to-day work, how do you help your team to sort of connect with your personal values in that sense and also just connect with the reason why they're on the team?
That's a really great question. And I think that my job is made a little bit easier with the organization I work with in terms of the values-based thinking that we have. And we talk about it all the time in every meeting. We talk about our values-based approach to everything. And so it's not a conversation that's hard to have about values with team members or whatever. So looking at the bigger why from an organizational perspective. But when I think about it from a personal perspective and what I value and what my values are, and how I reflect that back in my staff, it's really all about, and I think I've mentioned it a little bit, honest, open communication, respect. Those are the things that I really value from a personal perspective. I've valued that in all of the really wonderful leaders that I have had and mentors that I've worked with. And so what I try to do is be open and honest with my teams. I try to show them respect at all times in order to gain that trust and have an open relationship with them. And, we talk a lot about what do you want to do? Like every month we have a formal coaching session every month. And we talk about what you want to do and what are your goals and where are you trying to get to and how can I help you get there and what does that look like? And so I really just try to live my own personal values in terms of every interaction I have. And hopefully that comes through, and then talk about values with your team and what they value.
Well, thank you so much for that. It's important. It's as though you're leaving a piece and a bit of yourself every day with every interaction. I really love it. So talking about mentorship now, a lot of folks that I've spoken with have talked about how great the place of mentorship is for them. Do you find that has been the same along your career? And if yes, without necessarily mentioning a name, do you have, someone who has mentored you and they've left so much impact with how you started to see your career? And what lessons did you learn from this particular person?
Yeah, absolutely. Mentorship is just such a wonderful opportunity to continue to learn every single day. We have a formal mentorship program at Assiniboine Credit Union, which I've participated in as a mentor, and I love being able to help people and watch them grow. I'm also, on the side, have another mentorship opportunity that I'm working with an individual at another company, which is great from an HR perspective. But yeah, I've definitely had mentors and people throughout my career that have really made an impact on me. And I think the one that came to mind when you asked the question is really just about an individual who I worked for. She was my manager, but also my mentor years ago. And, I found it's very interesting because that was where I had moved from that individual contributor role into a manager role and just trying to, find my feet as a manager, I think a little bit, and really wanting to emulate this individual. Every single time I went into her office to ask her a question, I'd ask her a question and her response every single time was, "What do you think?" And so, I clued in after a while, and then I was like, okay, so before I go into her office, I'm going to think about my response. So I would then start going in and say, this is a question I have, and this is what I think we should do. And then we'd have another conversation about it. And really at the end of the day, what she instilled in me was just that confidence to know that I had the answers. And I knew what the right answer was. And I knew the right approach or the right next steps to take in whatever situation we were dealing with. And that at the end of the day, I didn't need her to give me the answer. And so I think that really helped in terms of, moving through my career and knowing, like I said, I went to Integra and I was it from an HR leadership perspective. And so, I really had to remember that I had the answers and I knew what to do, and she had helped to instill that confidence in me. And I really try to do that with each of my team members as well. Whenever they come in with a question, my response is always, "What do you think?" And so they now know that they come to me with their question and their response about what they think. And then we have a conversation about it and we can weigh the pros and cons, and I can do some coaching and have them kind of come up with that best solution for the situation. But I really think that was the biggest thing that she had helped me with, was just instilling that confidence that I knew the right answer. Yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah.
You've got it, and you have the answers. Believe in your instinct and get it done. I really love that. It's probably one of those ones I'm picking away and saying, yeah, I'm keeping this for myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Delaney. So yeah, a few more as we look towards wrapping up. If you could sit back with younger version of yourself, 20 years back, or, just at the start of your career, what would you be saying to that younger version of you?
Yeah, I've said this a couple of times today as we've talked. So number one, you don't have to have all the answers all the time. So that's something that I really struggled with early on in my career, was like, I don't know what to do. And then I would kind of get in my head about not knowing what to do. So you don't need to have all the answers. I would tell them to ask a lot of questions, and your team is there to ask questions to, and really just tap into all of that knowledge around you. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And that hard work will pay off. You can't sit around and wait for something to happen for you. You have to you are the person who owns your career, and you need to, put in the work and it will pay off. And so I think those are the three things that I would really tell my younger self, and, that it's going to work out and it's going to be okay. Just put in the work and ask lots of questions. And also, I think if I could add one more, it's just to be yourself. And just, there were so many times when I feel like I was trying to be someone different because I thought that that's what people wanted from me. And that's what I felt like I needed to be. And at the end of the day, all of the best things happened when I was just being myself and being my authentic self. And so, yeah, I think that would be another one.
That is so loaded. I hear you were talking to the younger Delaney, but I can resonate with a whole lot. Yeah. So that was so deep. That was so good. Thank you so much. Of course. A few more quick ones. It's if you could sit down with someone who was just starting off their career, especially with how the world of work has evolved in the last couple of years, and we're seeing, so much evolution. What would you be counseling them on in terms of the things to sort of focus on, regardless of the field of career?
Yeah, I think a lot of that would be patience, right? And hard work would be two things that I would definitely be telling them to focus on. Things might not happen right away. And I think that some of the younger generation today really gets wrapped up in wanting things to happen so quickly. And it might not, and that's okay. You have a long career ahead of you, right? The rest, you'll be working for a very long time. And so there's a lot of time for those things to happen. So just be patient, hard. You have to work hard. You can't, again, sit around and wait for those things to happen for you. I also think from a leadership perspective, and I don't know if that's what you're asking, but I'm going to answer it from a leadership perspective in terms of, the way that leadership is changing and those kinds of things. Like in the past, from a traditional leadership perspective, it was all about, leadership was based on these hierarchical measures, right? Where traditional decision-making was up at the higher levels. And I really think that from a leadership perspective, we need to modernize that a little bit and just be more focused on kind of open communication, embracing diversity and inclusion. That's no longer something that we can avoid. Not that I think we ever should have, but, just embracing those open communications. We need to take genuine interest in our teams and genuine interest in their development and help them work through that. And I think that in doing that, you'll be able to gain that respect. You'll be able to gain that, gain the trust from them as a leader, and you'll just be more productive and have better results overall, as opposed to that traditional, this is the decision, go ahead and do it. I think people need to be involved in those decisions, and they need to be part of those decisions in order to embrace the change and embrace those decisions. And yeah.
That was so loaded. Thank you so much, Delaney.
You're welcome.
One other one,
Yeah.
In the space of learning and also in the space of leadership, what's one legacy that you're hoping to leave behind when you no longer want to do all of this?
Yeah, that's a really hard question to think about, the legacy that you want to leave behind. From a learning perspective, I just want people to feel like they're supported. And they're supported in their roles, and they're supported in their development. And so when I think about learning, particularly at Assiniboine where I'm at today, like, I don't want people to feel like they don't know what to do and they don't know who to go to. And I want them to feel supported and have all the tools that they need. From a leadership perspective, I want to be remembered as a leader who was kind and who was patient and who was open and honest with my team members. And I think that if that's the legacy that I can leave as a leader, that will be wonderful. I think, I've heard from my team members today that they really appreciate the support that I give and helping them develop and get to that next step. And sometimes that means that you're helping someone move on to their next job or their next career that isn't where you are today. And that's okay. And I think that as leaders, we need to be okay with that. I would much rather work with someone and be on a team with someone who's thriving and learning and has the potential to move on to another organization than someone who's doing none of that. And so, we just have to be okay with that. And I hope that my team always feels supported to move up and to move on with their career.
Thank you so much. I feel like if I could wrap all of that up in one sentence, is you want to be known as that leader who had a different perspective to leadership and, just rethinking leadership. And I was saying to myself as you were sharing, and wanting to be a kind of leader, wanting to be someone who leaves an impact. It's in you may manage, maybe throughout your leadership time, manage 10 people. But if you're able to infuse all of that in those 10 folks, then they have seen a good example of a leader that they want to be like. And they can also, just propagate that with their own leadership as they start to evolve. So yeah, thank you so, so much, Delaney. It's been such a great conversation. I almost don't want it to end, but I have one last one. If anyone was listening and they just needed some form of motivation in their career right now, what advice would you be giving to them? I feel like sometimes people feel like they're stuck or people want to approach the next big thing. What's one advice you've been leaving behind for our listeners today?
I think if you're stuck and you're looking, you're looking what that next step is, write it down. Write down a goal, revisit it often, write down some things that you think you can do to get there and just start, right? Don't wait, just start. Even if it's one little tiny thing that you can do, I think that sometimes that makes all the difference in the world to regain that motivation and regain that perspective. And so just start. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much, Delaney. Like I could go on and on. It's almost like I could go on and on, except of course I'm mindful of time. This has been such an insightful episode. For me, just listening to you right now, I've taken in a lot. And you know what happens is the funny part is every time I'm editing all of these pieces, I pick my journal and sometimes I'm like, I need to take that again. Like I literally just soak it all in.
That's awesome.
Like a sponge. And so this is so good. This is so insightful. And I can imagine that anyone who gets to, listen or watch this episode would really appreciate it. I just wanted to say thank you for your time and thank you for, just sharing very openly today lessons that you've learned and all of the pieces that can help others even be better with their career. Thank you so much for honoring me with your presence on this show today. Thank you so, so much, Delaney.
Thank you, Ola. It's been a wonderful conversation and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And this is why we call it a day. Thank you so much for joining this episode. Until next time, where I bring you yet another incredible, I am in awe of the quality of conversations that get to happen on this podcast. And this is where we call it a day today. If you're not subscribed yet, it's Career Zone by Ola on YouTube and all of the podcast channels. Please make sure to subscribe and follow. Leave a comment. There's lots of takeaway that Delaney has shared today. I would like to know what your biggest takeaway has been today. Until next time, keep thriving, keep shining, and keep growing.